I think MicroStrategy hits $1 trillion in 2025. I think at $1 trillion, we see like a mean reversion, and it could happen quick. I mean, we could go from 100 billion to $1 trillion, I think pretty quickly. I personally think the volatility is going to increase. I think we're going to see bigger amplitudes up and down moving forward into 2025. It's going to freak people out. The mania that we saw in November is going to look like a drop in the bucket. At a $400,000 Bitcoin price, I mean, who's selling? Like, if you really think this is a new economic monetary ecosystem where you can use it as collateral to facilitate and finance your life in different ways, what's the point of selling? This is one of the really interesting parts in my perspective is if there's a strategic Bitcoin reserve, we're going to see the price of Bitcoin go up, and there could be a game theory phenomenon happening where, you know, you've got nation states competing for adding more Bitcoin to balance sheet. And I suspect we're going to see 20 plus companies add Bitcoin to their balance sheet in 2025, potentially even more.
What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Jeff Walton, aka Punter Jeff, is a risk and capital advisor, market theorist, lopsided investor, and he's proudly irresponsibly long Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. MSTR True North host, digital capitalist, and one of the quant bros leading the charge of batshit crazy MicroStrategy gladiators charging up the hill of financial freedom with spears made out of derivatives. Punter Jeff, welcome to the Bitcoin Matrix podcast, sir. How are you?
Thank you. That intro gave me the chills. So here we are, excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I mean, no shortage of things to talk about. The market is incredibly dynamic. And I mean, this is the most interesting story in financial markets ever, in my opinion. So we just happen to be at a unique time in the world.
I really do agree. I think 2024 was wild from the perspective of financial engineering, what MicroStrategy is doing. And I want to preface this with, what we're going to get into is a lot about, I think, trading theory. But, I think that's really helpful for people who are diamond hand hodlers to kind of understand how markets work, what's happening in the market, how traders think. And sort of how to kind of think through your own scenarios. And I think for a lot of people, and I speak for myself, who kind of came through MicroStrategy, maybe through GBTC or having money trapped in the system and just wanting to get Bitcoin price exposure and then recognizing the best vehicle to do that. And I think in 2024, what's unfolded with what Michael Saylor has done with MicroStrategy has been beyond fascinating. And I come from a finance and accounting background. I love markets. I think they're fascinating. And so I really want to get into it with you. I'd love to find out, what were you doing? Like, what did you study in college? Yeah. And what do you do for work, outside of all of this madness?
Yeah. So studied in college. So I was a business and economics double major at the University of Puget Sound, which is a small Division III liberal arts school. I played 2 sports there, double major, graduated at the top of my class. Focused on business and economics, and particularly finance. So I took every single finance class that the school had to offer. Originally, when I got to school, I wanted to be an engineer. I took a physics class. I struggled with the physics class and quickly pivoted. And I found out, I was incredibly interested in economics, and I loved math and statistics. So I kind of really leaned into that passion. And that's really, taking 4 years of finance and econ classes really was incredibly exciting to me. Additionally, I was like a class away from a minor in math. So I took, all the statistics classes, 2 levels of calculus, econometrics, like every math related econ class. Those are the ones I picked as well. So really focused on math and econ, understanding structures, things like that. And it's interesting, just thinking about this, one of the things I really like about financial markets just in general is the architecture and the design of financial markets. And so thinking about, my desire to be an engineer when I went into college, I think that I keep the same things that I'm interested in. It's like the design and building things. And that's always been really appealing to me. I mean, when I was a kid, I was playing with Connects and Legos and all of those things. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get the nickname Punter Jeff?
Punter Jeff. That's not many people have asked that one either. But it was actually crazy. I showed up to college my first day of going to. I went to baseball practice. So I've been two-sport athlete. I played baseball and football. So I had been, practicing in football, just getting ready for the football year. My position in football was a punter. I showed up to baseball practice in the fall, which is just like fall baseball. It's just, everybody's shooting the shit and playing around. And, some guy was like, "Oh, this is the punter. This is Punter Jeff." And it just clicked and stayed since then. Like day one of baseball practice, I was the punter, and that's how I became Punter Jeff. And then people knew me around school as Punter Jeff. That was just like the thing. I think I've had Punter Jeff as my name on Twitter since 2012, like when I started my Twitter. So, yeah, it's funny. A lot of people had mentioned that I guess in Europe it's like a gambler, like a high stakes gambler. So it's a dual meaning. I've got the investment, investment. But I was also a punter in college. So
that's awesome. I also see a similarity with what you guys are doing from a quant perspective, which is running the numbers and crunching all the numbers of what's happening here, looking at how the markets are architected and figuring out how things work. So when I came to Bitcoin in 2017, I got so geeked out on running the numbers, and you kind of get really can be overwhelming, but you start to learn a lot about where this can go mathematically. And there's also maybe that feeling from the outside, though, maybe others have, of like, is this roaring kitty? Is Punter Jeff the next roaring kitty? Is I think from the outside, a lot of people, and that's what I got excited about with the MicroStrategy crowd, because I think that really came to fruition in 2024 with the way the trade went from better than GBTC to really better than ETFs and why. And I think that dawned on Michael Saylor during the year and sort of the obstacles he had and challenges with the ETFs being approved. So what was your rabbit hole story like? And did you come to Bitcoin or MicroStrategy first?
Yeah, that's a great question. I came to Bitcoin first. In college, I had heard about Bitcoin. In my senior econ thesis class, 3 out of the 6 people did their thesis on Bitcoin. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I just totally overlooked it because I was focused on other things. And, I got into finance. And in 2017, I traded Bitcoin a few times. Everybody in my company, like in my office, was just talking about Bitcoin. There was a lot of buzz, but nobody really knew like what it was or what was going on. And then I just didn't think about it anymore. Continued to operate in the reinsurance market. And in 2020, during COVID, I became like a lot more fascinated with just equities and options, like how the options market worked. And so I started playing with options trading and figuring out the math with options trading. I mean, you could have bought call options on anything in April of 2020 and made money, but I was starting to like develop a thesis. I bought Sony call options because I was making a bet on the PS5. And I was just figuring out how those worked and, watching the market, looking at other things and how they kind of interplayed together. And then just taking a step back and thinking about the equity market from like the perspective of my job and how like insurance companies manage their portfolios and how large capital makes decisions. I think that's probably something I've got a unique lens on. And so, 2021, I was part of the GameStop trade. I watched it from the beginning. And I like thought it was too good to be true. I bought put options on a Friday because I was playing with options. I bought put options on a Friday, did a ton of research over the weekend, realized I was totally screwed in my position buying put options, which was bearish GameStop. Realized I was totally screwed. On Monday, I sold the put options for a profit. So somebody stupider than me bought them. And I liquidated my entire portfolio and I bought GameStop shares on that Monday. And then proceeded to ride the price of GameStop up from, I don't know, like 50 up to 300. And then I exited at like 280. Because it was very apparent that, there were other actors in the equity environment realizing that the trade had been disrupted and sentiment had been broken. So I kind of exited the trade at that point. But like during that entire week, it was it initiated this like enormous game theory process of thinking about the entire market and who operates in the market. Retail made the most noise, but retail wasn't the group that